This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. No choice but to get on. Mandate. Get it on. Welcome to the best hour show in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla. It's Mark Garrigus in the Hamptons.
In the Hamptons, at the Capri Hotel, we like to affectionately call Mayberry for the rich, white, privileged. And, you know, although there was a fundraiser here for a noble cause, I think last night, and another one earlier this week. So there's social consciousness, at least, or some degree of that.
What is the price per square foot in the Hamptons? So just to kind of lay it down for people listening around the country, and I do now see, it's funny, in the people that live in L.A., people think, oh, the rich people, the big taxpayers, they're moving out. There's a lot of lower people moving out, too, because for what you can get a house outside of New Orleans, $250,000, you get 5 acres and a ranch-style house and all that kind of stuff. And obviously here we can't build homeless shelters for under $530,000 a unit. So what's that buy you as a young couple? So, I'll
give you an example.
What is the square footage? Sorry,
I don't know price per square foot, but I will tell you that I was talking with the CEO of a major real estate, probably one of the largest real estate agencies yesterday, and she was telling me there is no supply here, and that 2 and 3 bedroom little love shacks, as she calls them, are going for $4 to $5 million on not postage stamp property, but a small, maybe 50 by 150 lot. When we were growing up, you would put 1,400, 1,200 square feet of a house on, and those things are going for multi-million-dollar, and in some cases, the closer they get to the water, even multiples of that. It's insanity. And by the way, I want to contrast something, because I've been now downtown L.A., Manhattan, La Cañada, and the Hamptons. So I've got my 2 urban centers, part of the bicoastal elite, and I've got the 2 suburbs of the bicoastal elite. And I will tell you that as much as people denigrate de Blasio, and as crazy as some of these things are, New York is nowhere near where LA is. LA is like something out of, it's like Armageddon. And downtown is just like nothing I've ever seen.
Well, we all heard earlier in the week that Barbara Ferrer, the county health director, was, I don't even know that she was caught on the phone or with a hidden mic or anything like that. She was doing like a conference call, and she doubled down on saying we're not going to reopen the schools, and that's K through 12. She's not talking about college until after the election. She also chose an interesting word, which I'd like to run it by your trained and keen lawyer ears too, because she used a word that was a little bit different. She switched up her dialogue for a second, but I'll just play it. I want to get your take on it, and then I want to talk about sort of the general plan. Go ahead, Gary.
School's going to need from us, and then what is the experience around cases and outbreaks when we open, even for a relatively small number of people to be on campus. So we don't realistically anticipate that we would be moving to either Tier 2 or to reopening K through 12 schools at least until after the election, in early November. Like when we just look at the timing of everything, it seems to us a more realistic approach to this would be to think that we're going to be where we are now until we are done with the elections.
All right. So a couple things. She could say, well, when I said the election, I was just looking for a sort of marker to connote early November. And
right. I'm looking 6 weeks out.
Yes. Now, first things first, I thought we were checking everything every 2 weeks and seeing how it was going. So I don't know why you just picked 6 weeks.
I was going to say the counterbalance to that is we keep talking about 7 and 14-day rolling averages. Right.
And then I would also argue that if you keep saying the election, then that means it's on your mind. You know, that's something that's at the top of your mind. And also, she used an interesting word. She said, she started by saying, I don't see us reopening until after the election. And then she said, I don't see us reopening until the election is done. And that means something different, because after the election is a date on a calendar. Done is more of an emotional mindset. Like, we need to win, and then we'll see. Once this is done, she used the word done, which is an interesting thing, because you say we'll open after Labor Day. We'll open after Christmas. You don't go when Christmas is done, when Labor Day is done. You say after, after the first of the year, not when not when New Year's is done.
That's an interesting take. When I heard this the first time, obviously I'd heard it immediately when it came out, because it just gives me such heartburn. I interpreted, when the election is done, the assumption that a lot of people have that we're not going to know a result on election night.
Well, there's that too. Yes.
That was where my mind jumped to. And how interesting that her tape is out virtually the same time that Woodward's Trump tape is out, where back on February 7th, Trump is talking about how it's a killer or it's dead and it's not just older people. And it's, I'm really grappling this week with how we've gotten to the point in the world, not just America, because I just had this conversation with a friend of mine who just showed up here, and he and I were talking about it, and we're, and he's older than I am and a very wise guy, wise sage. And we just cannot figure out how this biological virus and overtaking the world. We said we can always look at it through the prism of America. And, it's a wonderful yin and yang, the county health officer versus the president, and what they knew and when they knew it, and blah, blah, blah. But the way this thing has overtaken the world, and when you hear these two tapes, it also reminds me of when there wasn't a tape with the Epstein killing. It's almost like the human psychology is to default to a conspiracy because it's inexplicable. I mean, it's inexplicable to me that the president, for political gain, would be saying, I'm going to downplay because I don't want to panic. I mean, I could defend that, I suppose. I can condemn that very easily. I have a lot more trouble trying to defend her using the election, especially, as you point out, because the reason I thought it was election, and if I were arguing this, I would say, look, she wasn't using the election as a signpost for 6 weeks out. If she was, she wouldn't say when the election was done. That, to me, is a tell. That means that you can ascribe political motivation, just the way Trump says, I didn't want to panic people. I didn't want to panic. That is, you can ascribe whatever you want to it. He clearly was trying to mislead. So how did we get to a point where in the world, because it's not just America, we've got this going on? You have a thought on that?
Well, people who run for these positions want power, and it's sort of like, all roads lead to bad cop shootings when you and I talk, but you give a guy a gun, the guy's 25 years old, you put it on his hip, he's just going to want to use it at some point. When we were at the Man Show, Cousin Sal, Jimmy's cousin, brought in a taser. One day, he tased every human being who worked there and before lunch, because that's what you do with a taser. So when you get power, when you run for a position, it doesn't sound attractive to a lot of people. To me, to be a cop, it's not attractive. I don't want to pull people over. I don't want to write people tickets. I don't want to, God forbid, shoot somebody. But if you run for office, then you do want power. And then once you get the power, you got to go out and take it for a ride. You know what I mean? I mean, what use is it being in power if you're not going to use that power?
So this past week, there's been in Michigan a hearing in front of the Michigan Supreme Court there, where by all accounts, the governor's authority to declare these kinds of rolling emergencies has been challenged, at least in the questioning by the justices. And I always like to listen if there's an audio of it or read a transcript, because I think you can tell a lot. I mean, I remember when people were saying Flynn was over, and you and I talked about it. I said, no way, this is going to be the end bank. It's going to come back and they're going to say there's no emergency here. Let him do the hearing. Sure enough, that's what he did, because you could listen and hear the skepticism in the judges' voices when they're asking the questions. They were doing the same thing with the governor there. And I was wondering, contrast that. I'll give you a theory I've been working on. Here in California, nobody is getting anywhere so far, or very limited success in challenging Gavin Newsom's orders in the courts. Michigan, whatever you want to say about it, it looks like they're getting some traction. And so, conspiracy theorist that I am, I say to myself, well, I wonder, and I've been asking this question, I haven't found anything to disabuse me of this. In Michigan, the governor did not give the chief justice part of the emergency authority, okay? So the chief justice there and the justices on the Supreme Court, they're not acting by fiat. Mm-hmm. Here in California, Governor Newsom gave the chief justice emergency powers, and she's used them basically to repeal the writ of habeas corpus, which has not been done since the Civil War. She has suspended trials. She has issued orders allowing the superior court, heads of superior courts, to basically, without any hearing whatsoever, without any, in some cases, without having the client even present, has ordered criminal trials continue. So that's a basic speedy trial right. Now, if this were happening in a foreign country, I would submit to you, Amnesty International would be saying this is unheard of. If this were, I'm old enough to remember when they did this in South Africa during the apartheid regimes, where they would suspend the idea of a speedy trial and you would languish. They do this in Russia. In the old Soviet Union was famous for this, is just saying, okay, well, you think you're going to just stay ad infinitum in custody. And then judges, we renewed some bail motions just this week. Judges say, well, nothing's changed. I said, what do you mean nothing's changed? You've just basically repealed speedy trial. And so my theory now that I'm working on is the reason there's no traction in California is Newsom was a Machiavellian genius. He knew that if he's got to get 2 out of the 3 houses, basically, he's got the executive, he's got the judicial, and the legislature has just rolled over and played dead. And that I'm going to predict that's not going to happen in Michigan because the governor there did not delegate some of her emergency powers to somebody else who, as you just said with your cousin Sal example, when you give them the power, that's what happens.
Well, I can't, to what end? I always keep thinking, like I literally got up this morning and I thought to myself, I'd like to go into a restaurant and have a steak. But what, Orange County, you can go into a restaurant and have a steak. Los Angeles County, you can't. Every morning I get up, I turn on CNN, they show the map, the pandemic map, and California is all green, which means good. They go, here are the states that are doing well, and here are the states that aren't doing well. And NYC's opening restaurants at the end of September. So, or they should just open them after the election, right? I mean, that's just good science. What is going on in LA? What is this thing? Like, I don't feel like I have information other than we're not opening up. It's not safe. And then I would say, here's what I want to say. When you do building, All right, I'm going to give you a prime goddamn example.
Good.
When you do building, you call the guy who manufactures and fabricates the glass railing that goes around the mezzanine or whatever, and these guys are out of Indiana, and you go, and then that guy says, do you want the laminated glass or do you want the tempered glass? And you go, what's the price? And they go, the laminated glass is twice as much as the tempered glass. And you go, fine, give me the tempered glass. And they go, where are you at? And you go, I'm in California. And the guy goes, uh-oh. I go, what's going on? Yeah, you can't do the tempered glass in California. You only do the laminated glass. And I go, where else is it this way? And they go, nowhere else, just California. And I go, but so you guys are all just rolling the dice with your safety when you go up to the fucking mezzanine level of the hotel? No, the tempered stuff is perfectly safe. Well, then why can't I have it in California? Yeah, well, it's too dead. They don't let you have it in California. Well, what are the other states doing that are so goddamn dangerous vis-a-vis railing that we can't pull it off in California? I mean, is that how we think? Like, well, New York, Arizona, Texas, you guys just rolling the dice every time you're exposed to railing? If it's good for everyone else, why do we always have to be the exception? Can't we just be as safe as other places? Why do we have to be 10 times as safe as other places? If the rest of the fucking country's open, why can't we be open?
I'm just perplexed. I don't understand the motivations. I don't get it. I mean, first they come up with the al fresco. I go back to the restaurants. You mentioned having a steak. So, okay, move the operation, even though we're not designed for it. We'll go operate on the sidewalk. And, you know, New York actually has done a pretty clever thing. They've kind of closed off some streets. They do it's like a block party. They understand, or at least somebody's got a brain in their head and understands that there's some utility in having restaurants open and people working. Although this poor woman in the Indian restaurant that I went to was telling me that she can't find, I mean, she was basically waiting on 8 tables outside and running around. And I said, why are you working so hard? People are out of work. Spread the wealth. She says, are you kidding me? Nobody wants to, she can't hire anybody because everybody's making more on unemployment. And I said, oh, no, you can't say that. That's not, that's verboten. You can't say it. Me, on the other hand, I'm trying to keep people employed and going on the street. And all of a sudden yesterday, they're telling the GM that I can't no longer be al fresco because it's interfering with, there isn't sufficient parking downtown. And I said, what are you talking about? I've got less seats and less capacity outside than I do inside. The parking hasn't changed. What are you talking about? Well, we don't have parking. So there's no parking. You can't do al fresco. And you say, well, who made this rule? This is just the new rule. We're revoking this permit or something else. I mean, it's just absolute. And I think part of it is, I was also talking with a U.S. attorney friend of mine. And as she mentioned, she says, thank God I've got a job. She's just staying at home and she's getting paid. She doesn't have to worry about it. I sent Gary an article today that just frosts me. Gary, do you have it handy? You remember this?
You said your GM downtown. You're talking about downtown L.A.?
Downtown L.A.
Yeah, sorry.
And there's an article about a group called Century 21. You in the West Coast think of the golden jackets in real estate, but Century 21 is kind of this iconic off-price brand store in New York. That's great. I love going there and rummaging through and finding little hidden bargains. And
it's like a really nice,
lot of people.
Really nice TJ Maxx, but you can actually find like Christian Dior and Armani and stuff. It's a great store. I love that place.
It's just if you got an hour or two and you want some retail therapy, it was a great place to go. They just went into bankruptcy, and the guy says, you know why I went into bankruptcy? I mean, it was his announcement. It's because I've spent money for God knows how many decades paying for business interruption insurance, and I'm shut down, and I'm trying to collect my $170 million in business interruption insurance, and the insurance companies are doing everything possible to invent their way around paying you and paying him. And what they've now done is forced him into bankruptcy. And all of those employees out of a job. all why the insurance company just sits here and fights tooth and nail, the cases I've got for claims that are six-figure claims. I did a hearing this week where I'm pursuing it myself because I can't hire. No lawyer's going to do this case on a contingency or anything else for the amount of money that the insurance claim is. They've got 6 lawyers on the phone for a hearing. 6 from Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. Can you imagine the bills they're paying? And you know why? Because they know, Gary, what does it say in the article? There's been how many claims so far? 136,000 claims?
So, hold on. Are you saying they have 6 lawyers for a 6-figure case because they know if they can win this case, it'll set precedent for the other 136,000 cases or so?
Exactly. I make a claim. They sue me. They remove my claim from state court. They paper it. You would not believe the amount of money that has been spent in this case. You can't believe the full court press they're putting on because they've got 136,000 claims. And I read today that the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, who knew there was such a thing, has put out a statistic that they basically closed their files on 135,000 of those and have forced all of these businesses who paid insurance for a business interruption, and they're trying to get all of these knocked out so that everybody goes out of business, and then that's the end of that. Why there isn't an outcry, why there isn't some kind of legislation. I know I keep railing about this, but the National Association for Insurance Commissioners really is doing a disservice to the small business people because, Century 21 is a much larger outfit, but it's the small businesses. I get 1 billion calls from people who have gyms or salons or restaurants, and all of them are going out of business, and their insurance companies just deny them and won't give them the time of day.
Well, isn't this the definition of business interruption? I mean,
you can't believe how they dance on the head of a pin. First, they tell you, well, it's because we got a virus exclusion. Well, you don't have a virus exclusion in all the policies, number one. And number two, who even knows? All I know is there's another section that says civil authority, meaning if the civil authorities are shutting you down, then you get compensated for that. You know what their argument is there? Their argument is there. They actually made this argument on the record. Well, you're not really shut down. You still have your kitchen. Your employees can still go inside the business, and you can have takeout. And I said, it's a fine dining restaurant. Who's going in for takeout on a fine dining? It's not Chipotle. It isn't Chick-fil-A, which is around the corner, which is doing fine. And that's the argument. And then they'll say, well, civil authority is caused by virus, and the virus is excluded. Mind you have to go through 238 pages of this policy to string together the most technical argument. And they, on top of it, want to knock these cases out at the pleading stage. They don't even want to let you do discovery in these cases. And you can't get anybody to get a fair hearing in this day and age or get an oral argument is almost like hitting the lottery. I got one this week, so we'll see what happens, or last week.
Gary, you have that article?
Yeah, that article focuses, I think Mark might be confusing it with another one. The article that he sent me focuses on all the details of the Century 21 case and doesn't speak to the broader business insurance. But Century 21...
Scroll down.
Oh, I've read the whole thing. It talks about all the other businesses that have failed and have had to shutter during the pandemic, from Brooks Brothers to JCPenney to J. Crew, Neiman Marcus, Sir Latab, Lord & Taylor. It's an absolute shit show, but it does say in here that Century 21, Adam, just to give you a little sense of their size, have 4,000 employees across 13 locations and had revenue of $750 million last year.
So I'm interested, Mark, and I've asked Drew about this a lot too. So we talk about California, we talk about the health director saying we're going to keep it closed down until the election is done. What is the upside? What's the big picture? I mean, most things are very clearly defined because you follow the money. The situation you're talking about as it pertains to the insurance companies, as bad as the insurance companies look in this endeavor, it's pretty easy to figure out their motives. They would be writing
want to pay the money.
checks for billions of dollars. All right, and look, when there's a bad cop shooting, then the cops circle the wagons, and you're like, why haven't they released the body cam yet? And it's like, well, because they're protecting themselves. I mean, good or bad, in every case, in every situation, it's pretty clear why someone is doing something, even if you vehemently disagree with it. I can't figure out Los Angeles. I don't know what the upside is.
I just realized that I do have a new argument here while I'm talking to you. This is why I love talking to you. Their argument for the insurance company is that the civil authority order meaning a shutdown order, is directly a result of the virus. Well, now we've got a tape of the LA County Health Director saying it's for electoral purposes. It's not the virus. So I want discovery. Maybe that's going to be my. I've got the ability to amend a complaint in one of these cases. I think that's going to be the new allegation. We now have it on tape. It isn't due to the virus, so they can't show direct causation. They're using that's the chief public health officer for LA County, where the restaurants are. Adam, I love talking to you. I mean, talking to you gives me a new lease on life when it comes to this. If she's doing this for electoral purposes, and now we have it on tape, and you can plausibly allege that, and that's the standard to get over what's called a 12B6 motion, then the civil authority shutdown isn't for the virus. It's for something else, correct?
Well,
for an electoral purpose.
Look, if you want to really drill down on it, there's three key elements. There's key elements of this. One is if you're going to reassess every 2 weeks, why did you pick a date that was 7 weeks away from now? Why not just tell everyone on the conference call, I'll talk to you guys in 14 days. We'll see what the numbers have, number one. Number two, you did use the word done, and you didn't say after. You said after a couple of times, but then you said done. And that is not, you'd already said after the election, then the last thing he says when it's done, which is different than after, and there's a reason you chose that word. But here's one more nuanced thing. The election is on a Tuesday, so we're going to get into this, we'll re-examine this policy midweek, Wednesday. Like, don't these meetings take place on Monday morning? It's a random, if the election took place Sunday evening, then you'd go after the election, Monday morning, we'll reassess this. That would give it some context. The election's on a Tuesday. You're going to reassess this on a Wednesday? That's the middle of the week. It's just, it's all very, it's a very random time to say we're going to. Nobody says we're going to reassess X, Y, or Z in the middle of the week. They go Monday morning, we'll do it, or they go Friday, end of day, we'll figure out what the plan is. This is you saying after the election, which is on, or when the election is done.
Can Gary play that again? I have another thought on that. Gary, or is that going to screw us up?
No, I can play it again. Just give me a moment here.
Can you play it one more time?
All right, let me hit. Yes.
Yeah, hit the spot. Adam, you may just have saved the economy right here. You may have just saved the economy. Adam, the economic savior.
First, let me hit Tommy John. You want to save your loins? I would go with Tommy John, the secret to staying sweat-free this summer. Tommy John's summer-ready, ultra-breathable underwear and bras, cool cotton underwear for men and for women. It's like having your own AC unit right down there on your body. Made from premium natural Pima cotton for enhanced airflow. It evaporates sweat super fast. I wear mine every day. I'm wearing mine today.
I'm wearing mine.
They're the best.
Look at that.
If you're working out, it's just the best. Oh, they also do lounge pants, lazy day joggers, soft Zoom ready tees and polos as well. Upgrade to Tommy John. Do it today for enhanced, super breathable designs. It's the best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free, guarantee. Tommy John, no adjustment needed, right, Gary?
That's right. For a limited time, go to TommyJohn.com/Adam to get 20% off site-wide. That's TommyJohn.com/Adam for 20% off site-wide. TommyJohn.com/Adam. See site for details. Here's the clip.
School's going to need from us, and then what is the experience around cases and outbreaks when we open even for a relatively small number of people to be on campus. So we don't realistically anticipate that we would be moving to either Tier 2 or to reopening K through 12 schools at least until after the election, after, in early November. Like when we just look at the timing of everything, it seems to us a more realistic approach to this would be to think that we're going to be where we are now until we are done with the elections.
Wow.
So it's like,
Wow.
what?
There really is no way. I'm trying to think. She knows that the statistics, she knows better than anybody that to move from tier to tier, for people who don't know, you know what that means, Adam. There's certain criteria, county by county, that move you from tier to tier. And that is not done randomly looking forward. You can say, well, I'm trying to forecast it, but that's the whole idea. We're not doing these 7-week, 8-week modeling for moving from tiers. She's talking about movement tier to tier. Movement tier to tier is measured daily, weekly, and biweekly.
She also said something that was telling, which is we're going to be where we're at now, 7 weeks from now, and then there's going to be election. And then after the election, something's going to change? I mean, why should we just flatline for 7 weeks and then there's a random event that involves an exchange of power and then all of a sudden that affects the virus? Like, why wouldn't we? I could see her saying, so if she was
This is just stunning to me. I can't believe I've been struggling with this argument that they were making. Excuse me for being fixated on it, and I'm sure Gibson Dunn has probably got 5 lawyers who listen to the podcast. That's why our numbers have spiked, Gary, by the way. Gibson Dunn is monitoring the podcast so that you can see what we're thinking, what Adam and I are thinking. Wait until their heads explode when we now have the chief health officer who's basically been delegated the emergency powers and admitting that it's not because of coronavirus.
Well, if
she said it's flat.
Right. If she had couched it, if she had said, we've been trending down, we're not down far enough to reopen the schools, but according to my calculations, by the time we get to the election, meaning early November, we should be down low enough to talk about reopening schools. She said nothing's going to change until the election. So I would argue
she didn't say the key, which was our modeling, because that's the only way you go out more than 2 weeks on tier shifting is if you're basing it on a model. Remember all the modeling stuff where people were talking about, as you were flattening the curve and everything else? Those are models.
Right. So her saying nothing's going to change until after the election, I mean, the obvious argument is what does an election have to do with a virus, and then why that date? You can go, I don't think anything's going to change until the beginning of November. And maybe she would argue that change meant not change in the model, but change in the policy. But either way, the fact that she brought up the election 3 times in 40 seconds, and she also said there was a point at the beginning where she said, I don't think the schools are going to reopen until after the election. And then it sounded like she caught herself. It sounded like she went early November. And then she went right back to the elections after that, which is weird. Sometimes people say things, they hear what it sounds like, they catch themselves. And so you would, if you were partisan like she is, and you wanted to, for some reason, keep the city closed down for reasons other than health purposes or science, you would say, I don't think we're going to reopen these schools until after the election. And then you'd go, I mean early November. Obviously, the elections are early November, and I meant early November.
That on a 6-week model out of the University of Washington or out of London.
But here's the question for you. California is a super Democratic majority. So what would change after the election? And then does this have to do with Newsom and a bigger picture, like running for president? Who gave her marching orders? By the way, I don't know if she needs marching orders. She's bumping off the rev limiter of radical anyway. I mean, she's always talking about, how marching is fine, but churches are bad and the beach is bad and Black Lives Matter is good and this is bad and this is affecting, these people more than those people. Like she's already she's pretty political. But what's in it for her? What's in it for Newsom? What's in it for Garcetti?
I think it's Garcetti because it's already been said by anybody who is prognosticating, including myself, that if Biden wins, and one of the great reasons I'm rooting for him is Garcetti he'll go to Washington. And by the way, he slipped in to the voters, extending his second term from a 4-year term to a 5.5-year term. So we normally would have gotten rid of him, but now we have him for a longer period of time. We will lose him, and maybe she feels she's going to hitch her wagon to his train.
I don't want to correct you. I don't want to correct you, but she doesn't have a wagon. She has a broom.
I can't go there, but if you wanted to do a crass political analysis, if you think Garcetti is going to join a Biden administration as, I don't know, maybe the director of HUD, and she thinks that she's going to use the Biden administration to get a national platform and be head of DHS? I mean, I can see that. That's not why is that far-fetched?
Why does keeping Los Angeles closed down benefit that? Or is it just a purely political from the standpoint that the more closed down you are, the more in the Biden camp you are, and the more open you are, the more in the Trump camp you are. So I am signaling, like we do with everything these days, with masks, with everything, which, American flags and stuff like that. It's I am with you because I am closed down.
Well, I profess all the time, I lean hard left. The problem is, I do that for a zillion different reasons that nobody gives a shit about. However, the problem is, I don't think a lot of people understand the consequences of what they're doing. There's no way to rationally explain what is happening in Los Angeles. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense what the governor is doing in California. At the same time, it makes zero sense what Trump is doing in Washington. I can hold both of those thoughts in my head. I mean, Trump, if he didn't have the, sovereign immunity, would be, in my opinion, he'd be liable. And same thing for what you can make the argument for what she's doing, Garcetti's doing, and Newsom's doing. There's nobody here who looks good in this anyway. But why can't you just get somebody to say, okay, we're going to be more rational about this, and we're not going to keep changing the goalposts. You can't operate that way. There's no way to keep saying close, open, beaches bad, outdoor good. I mean, none of it. Mask bad, mask good. None of this hangs together.
What do you reckon happened with the trick-or-treating thing? They said,
I know exactly what happened. It's the oldest story in the world. Oldest story in the world. For those who don't know, he issues an edict. At what time of the day? Was it like 1 o'clock or something? Garcetti
said no trick-or-treating this year until after the election. You can trick-or-treat it.
So I'm going to say within 100 minutes, less than 2 hours, the sheriff came out and said, you can do whatever you want. We're not enforcing that. And he quickly realized, I don't have the army. Basically, that's what it is. You can't, the executive has to rely on the people to do the enforcement. You can't, it's one of the reasons why Orange County kind of went their own way because the Orange County Sheriff said, I'm not enforcing this nonsense. It makes no sense. I don't know what you're doing. That takes away the linchpin of these executive orders.
What did you make of the football game last night as we tape this, and the way the Texans stayed in the locker room and the way KC came out onto the field? And I guess then people sort of joined arms in unity. And then I guess the crowd booed because there was only 16,000 people in a stadium that probably holds 80. So those 16,000 seem to be booing. What were they booing in your estimation, and did you see it?
I watched the YouTube. I saw what sounded like, it's tough on the YouTube, but it sounds like starting to boo, but then it moved to cheers at some point. I couldn't tell because you're not there to watch it, whether the cheering was a result of something that was happening on the field because of the cutaways of it. It's interesting to me, though. I forget who it was who said it today. It might have, I don't want to attribute it to somebody who doesn't. Somebody said something that Ice Cube noted back for the Big Three. Ice Cube's solution is why are we having a national anthem at a sporting event? Well, it never made any sense to him. And so he didn't do it. And then one of the, I believe it was a coach, came out and said the same thing today when we're taping this, that it makes no sense. Why are we doing this? It's obviously a hot button issue, and it's been hijacked by both sides. And so we're not going to do it.
What did you think of Houston deciding to just stay in the locker room through the national anthem? And I guess I'm looking at Gary, the hymn or the song that was sung of unity, which the name escapes me, but I guess they did the national anthem and the sort of, for lack of a better term, black national anthem. We can figure that one out. And they just stayed in the locker room. Did they?
It's called Lift Every Voice and Sing.
So they stayed in for the whole thing. Do you
Yes.
think that was just a political decision of like, we're not going to have a press conference. I don't want to answer questions.
I don't know, but I will tell you that the hypocrisy of the NFL and this kind of, lack of a better term, public relations campaign that Roger Goodell is on is so galling to me. I just wish some reporter, next time he's doing one of these kind of reformation or cleanup campaigns, would ask him, well, can we see your deposition that's under seal, your sworn testimony that's under seal from Colin Kaepernick's case? We'd like to see what you said in real time when you're apologizing, except to Colin, and when Colin doesn't have a job, and when you're saying that we should have listened. Well, let's see when you apologize, what are you apologizing for? You gave sworn testimony on this very subject. Could we see it? That's what I would like, because that's what's so galling to me. That's why I get so aggravated. I was there. I questioned him. I know what he said, and this is just astounding.
Only one KC player, I think, took a knee, which is, I don't know what the over-under was, but one is, that's interesting to me that one Kansas City player, I do believe, took a knee. Also, oh, God, what's the KC quarterback's name?
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes.
Alex Okafor, by the way.
Took the knee. I'll tell you, look, I don't want to tip off the brothers, but I can tell you that you can tell the ones that aren't down with the cause, because Patrick Mahomes not down with the cause, and I'll tell you why.
Why?
You can't go out there wearing a shirt, a Ted Nugent shirt or something, or an OP surf shirt from the 70s. You have to wear a T-shirt pregame. You have to wear a T-shirt that says, something. You have to make a statement. I can't breathe, or say her name, or Black Lives Matter. You can't just wear a plain T-shirt. But Mahomes, pregame, is wearing a shirt that says vote. And vote is a sort of neutral, I don't really want to get in trouble statement, but I also don't want to get yelled at in the locker room. So it's like a vote is your generic kind of, I'm not really down with the cause, because I was down with the cause. I have a Black Lives Matter, I can't breathe, or hands up, don't shoot, or something a little more aggressive. He just had the colorful vote. That is a neutral, that's a political sort of neutral stance of, I don't want to get any shit from this side, I don't want to get any shit from that side. That's my take on the vote hoodie. Thoughts,
it's an interesting
Mark?
take. I will tell you that didn't cross my mind, because there's a large movement of people who want to get out the vote, but that's generally vote is associated, or getting out the vote is associated with the left, if you will. It's not associated with the right.
No, but what I'm saying is in a world.
Oh, you're saying it should have been more activist.
Well, here's what I'm saying. In a world where you're the leader of this team and you are the Super Bowl champion, so all eyes are going to be on you, you cannot go out in a T-shirt that says "Making Bacon" with two pigs fucking on it. Here are your choices. You can have the say her name. You can have Black Lives Matter. You can have hands up, don't shoot. You can have vote. And you can have, Black Power with a fist on it. Which one you going with? You going with vote is you saying, I'd like to be the most neutral of this. That's the most neutral I can go with there. That's the least inflammatory. That's the least of a statement you can make.
I completely missed that. But you know why? What I was thinking about this week was, I don't know if you saw it, Gary. What day did it happen? Ben worked out a deal, and EA Sports.
Oh, Cap is on EA Sports.
It was Tuesday or Wednesday, and Cap is rated. Cap's got some great ratings in that game. He's balling. He's about middle of the pack as far as the ratings for the skills. He's above about half the quarterbacks in the league.
Hey, you tell boring cop Ben that I said getting Cap onto EA Sports just because he hasn't been in the league in a few years is a fine. By the way, that's good. But if he could get Art Schlichter on that, that would be Herculean. Then I would know he was the greatest negotiator ever.
I'm going to tell him you said that.
Tell him Cap is okay, but I could negotiate that. You get Art Schlichter on there, who's, by the way, in prison, and you are the world's greatest negotiator. I don't know why I was yelling at my son. We were doing our fantasy draft the other day, and the fantasy draft we do, Sonny, it's called a father and son fantasy draft, but I just sit there while Sonny makes all the draft picks. But every once in a while, it was a Zoom call. Then it comes to our pick, and they're going, now the Carollas, and Sonny's going, I want Zeke. I want to go with Zeke, and I'm yelling Art Schlichter as loud as I can from the back, and Sonny's getting angry at me. He's like, who's Art Schlichter? I said, you think you know football? He won the Heisman Trophy, played for Ohio State. He got in a little trouble with gambling. He's in jail right now, but he's still fresh. He can still play. So I had my son do a deep dive on Art Schlichter.
Art Schlichter. Wow, that's a name. Didn't Art play in Indianapolis?
He played Ohio State. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. I honestly don't know if this Heisman Trophy is a good thing or a bad thing anymore. Like, I don't know what it doesn't guarantee that much. You know what I mean? Archie Griffin won it 2 years in a row at Ohio. I think it was at Ohio State as
Archie
well.
Griffin was Ohio State.
And, he had a yeoman-like, sort of journeyman-like pro career, but not two-time Heisman Trophy winner type career. Art Schlichter is in prison, I think, as we speak.
Correct. And per my reading, I don't think he won the Heisman.
Oh, Sonny looked it up and
he finished in the top 6 of the balloting, but
he never won the Heisman. Yeah. Who won? Maybe Archie Griffin. No, Archie Griffin was before him.
Archie.
Where did Art Schlichter finish? Who was in that Heisman class?
Well, he would have had 4 shots at it because you don't have to be a senior.
When he finished the highest in the balloting, sorry.
4th as a sophomore, so that would have been 79. Let me see here.
Man, 4th as a sophomore, as a quarterback. Not too bad. But anyway.
And back in 79, that was a big deal.
Charles White won the year that he...
USC.
Charles White.
Makes sense. All right, so anyway, you tell Boring Cop that if he can get Art Schlichter onto that video game, he will have my respect for the first time.
I'll pass that along.
All right, let me hey, Mark, we're going
to do plugs. When are we going to be in
Salt Lake City? October 2nd and 3rd at Wise Guys. We're going to be, I think we're flying out together, hopefully, on your airplane. So we'll look forward to that. And we're going to do a live Reasonable Doubt, 4 o'clock on the 3rd. Yeah, it's got to be Saturday. So we'll do a live matinee show of Reasonable Doubt, Mark and I up on stage. So if you want to come out to Wise Guys and say hi, do that. This weekend, I'm coming up September 18, 19, Tempe Improv, 2 shows there. And, Mark, what do you got?
I got the Capri Southampton. Come on by. It's very relaxing. V Palm Springs. Come down there and try and get one of the local constables to give you a citation for breathing in 118-degree heat. Or go by Engine Company 28. You may or may not be able to eat al fresco, same with 10E. And don't forget Gary's favorite place, Casa Tropicana in San Clemente.
So, till next time, Adam Carolla for Mark Garrigus saying mahala.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.